Namaste and good morning, everyone. Let's start our Tuesday class with some prayers. Om Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Parabrahma, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Om Bhurbhuvah Swaha, Tatsavitra Varenyam, Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi, Dhiyo Yo Nah Prachodayat, Asto Ma Satgamya, Tamso Ma Jyotirgamya, Mrityurma Amritam Gamya. Om Sehna Vaktu, Sehna Bhunaktu, Seviryam Karvavai, Tejasvi Navadhitamastu, Ma Vidvishavahi, Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Let's open our books, Uddhava Gita. And we are on second chapter, verse number 22. And page number on the book which we are reading from is page number 75. And this is a conversation going on between that Brahman and the king, the Yadu king. Okay, so this is because that Brahman said that I have learned all this because the king was surprised that how can a person be so peaceful, no agitation at all. So then he is saying that I have learned it from these 24 teachers. So now in the verse number 22, he's talking about this prostitute, Pingala. Learned from her also. So it's up to us what we want to learn. Where our attention is, we can learn from anything we want to. So this is what is being said over here in these verses. So verse number 22, chapter number 2. So Pingalaha naam vaishyasid videha nagre pura tasyame shikshitam kinchin nibodh nrip nandanan. O son of kings, long ago there lived a prostitute named Pingala, who resided in the city of Videha. Now please hear what I have learned from her. So now the Brahman will describe what he learned from Pingala, the prostitute, by narrating her story. So verse number 23. Sa swarinyah ekda kantam sanket upneshyati abhut kale bahirdware vibhrati rupam uttamam. One night, the prostitute dressed herself attractively and sat outside her house, waiting for the arrival of a lover. By dressing in attractive ways and making various sensual bodily gestures, the prostitute Pingala would attract her lovers. Verse number 24. Marg agachataho vikshyahe purushan purush rishabh tan shulk dan vitvataha kantan mene arth kamuki. O foremost of men, this prostitute wanted desperately to get some money, and for that purpose she stood by the side of the road at night, gazing at all the men as they passed by. She thought, this man looks wealthy, and I am sure that he would like to enjoy with me. In this way, she evaluated all men as they passed her by. People who were attached to enjoying an intimate relationship with a woman would come to her house and pay a handsome amount. Verse number 25 and 26. Agetishvah apyateshu sanketoho pajivani apye anyaho vitvan ko api mam upeshyati bhurida evam durashyaha dhvastaha nidradvare avlambati nigachantihi pravishatihi nishitham sampadyata. As Pingala stood in her doorway, many men passed her by, Her only means of support was her profession as a prostitute. And so she anxiously thought, maybe this man will enjoy my company. He looks like he has a lot of money. Here is another man who will surely pay me for my love. Alas, this man did not stop, but someone else is coming now who will surely want to pay me for my love. Thus, hoping against hope, Pingala remained standing in her doorway, unable to earn enough money and thus retire for the night. Being very anxious, she sometimes went out into the street and then again went back into her house. In this way, the night passed. The word Nishtam indicates that she waited till midnight, but no one availed of her services. Okay, so Nishtha. Nishtha means like a firmness, that she waited and waited. Tasyaha vitashyaha shushyad vakra tarayav dena chetasaha nirvedaha paramo jagye chinta hetu sukhavaha. When it became very late, the prostitute, who badly wanted to get some money, became morose so that her face appeared withered. Being full of anxiety and greatly disappointed, she began to experience a sense of detachment from her situation, so that a kind of happiness arose within her mind. Her entire night passed by thinking about wealth. The prostitute Pingala, who was greedy for money, dedicated her life to satisfying lusty men. As a result of engaging in the service of conditioned souls with her body, mind, and speech, and forgetting the service of the Supreme Lord, her mind became extremely restless. Finally, she became so frustrated that she became indifferent to her situation, so that happiness began to arise within her mind. Tasyaha nirvishnaha chintayaha Gitam shrinu yatha mama nirved asha pashanam purushasya yatha hi asi. Detachment is the only means by which a person can destroy the network of material desires. The prostitute felt disgusted with her situation, and this gave rise to indifference. Now, please hear from me the song sung by the prostitute in that situation. So Pingala thought, my ambitions are the cause of my material bondage. Detachment or indifference is the only weapon by which this network of bondage can be cut to pieces. Those who cannot gain freedom from the bondage of their social position and family responsibilities, if they take up the trident of detachment, they can cut the knots of material bondage and attain auspiciousness. Those who are too attached to material enjoyment and are addicted to bodily pleasures cannot understand the messages of the self-satisfied Supreme Lord, being bound by the ropes of illusion. So detachment, we are all familiar with this word, detachment. Sometimes we think that by fulfilling the desires, we can attain the peace. No. Every scripture we study, they talk about the detachment. Only through detachment, vairagya, we can attain that peace, not fulfilling the desires. Verse number 29. Nahi angajat nirvedo deh bandham jihasati yatha vigyan rahito manujo mamatam nrip. O king, just as an ignorant person with no spiritual knowledge is never inclined to renounce his false sense of ownership, similarly, a person who has not developed a sense of detachment will never give up his attachment for his material body. So the Avadhut begins to explain the purpose of this narration. So now Pingala is saying, so that's why it says Pingalo Uvach, verse number 30. Aho me moho vitatim pashyataha vijit atmanaha ya kantad asataha kamam kamyo yen balisha. Pingala said, alas, just see how greatly illusioned I am due to my uncontrolled senses. As a result, I have lost my power of discrimination and therefore desire satisfaction from similarly illusioned, lusty men. So the word kam means lusty desires. Pingala is in effect saying, I desire to become satisfied in sex, and thus I can understand that I am completely illusioned. The senses of the conditioned souls are naturally attracted to the sense objects of this material world. This is the prime example of the conditioned soul's foolishness. We know that conditioned soul means the Jivatma. Some people who are actually averse to the Lord's service try to artificially check their senses for engagement in sense gratification for some time. But this actually does more harm than good because of their misunderstanding regarding the absolute truth. Foolish people consider other sense enjoyers to be their masters, and thus they pray to them for the fulfillment of their own sense gratification. However, as soon as one becomes enlightened in spiritual understanding, his life of material enjoyment can be transformed into a life of spiritual perfection. Okay? So these senses, if you just let them go wherever they want, they'll go towards the sensuous enjoyment. So restraining of the senses is very important. So that's why this dham is so important for a sadhak. Control the senses. Do not let them just go here wherever they want to. It's almost like those horses on the chariot. If you let that rein loose, definitely they'll go wherever they want to go. They'll go into the ditch, they'll go to the wild places. So that's how the senses are too. So restraining of the senses so that our journey is towards our ultimate goal. We don't waste time. Okay. So verse number 31. Santam samipe ramnam rati pradam vitam pradam nityam imam vihaya akamadam dukha vyadi shok moh pradam tucham aham bhajengya. I am so foolish. This is Pingala saying, that prostitute. I am so foolish that I have given up the service of the most beloved person, the Supreme Lord, who is always situated within my heart and who can award me real pleasure and prosperity. I abandoned his service and engaged in the service of insignificant men who were unable to fulfill my real desires, but instead brought me distress, fearfulness, anxiety, lamentation, and illusion. Doesn't that happen when we are running towards the worldly pursuits? Sure, here and there, little satisfaction, but most of the time, it's the fear. Even if we have attained something, we are always afraid that it will be taken away from us. Anxiety is there, stress is there. But the minute we decide that, no, I want to, my real love is my God, when there's no fear. We always feel the presence of God, no matter where we are. So Pingala thought, the super soul is sitting in my heart. Why do I not try to experience the pleasure of a conjugal love with him? Why am I earning money by allowing many sinful men to enjoy my body? Actually, all these rich men were unable to fulfill my lusty desires. The material desires of the conditioned souls are aroused due to lack of God consciousness or due to lack of seeing the Supreme Lord as the only worshipable person. Aversion to the Lord's service places the conditioned souls in an artificial condition of distress, fear, lamentation, and illusion. Being under the control of the material nature, they cannot understand that the Supreme Lord is the true object of worship in all respects and that He is always present by their side. The Supreme Lord is the actual enjoyer of all that is enjoyable, and He is situated in the hearts of all living entities as their well-wishing friend. Because it is the natural propensity for a conditioned soul to befriend another conditioned soul, they should together engage in the service of the non-dual Supreme Person. So even in a relationships also, we got to keep that mind that all of us have the same lover. That's why they say that who pray together, stay together. The Supreme Lord is eternal, and He is the master of those who award material wealth and other benedictions. He alone awards transcendental happiness because He is the one Supreme Person who is eternal, full of knowledge and bliss, who maintains all others, subordinate persons. One who gives up his relationship with the Supreme Lord and indulges in temporary material enjoyment is certainly fool number one. Verse number 32, Pingala is still talking. Aho may atmaha paritapitoho vritha sankete vrityati vigrahe vartya strenan naradhayad partha yartha trisho nushochiyat kriten vitam ratim atam nechati. Alas, I have unnecessarily troubled myself by adopting this most abominable profession of prostitution. Desiring to earn money and enjoy sexual pleasure by selling my body to lusty men who themselves are to be pitied. Pingala laments that she tried to attain a most insignificant pleasure by selling her body to insignificant, useless men. The art of arousing the spirit of enjoyment is called Sanket Vritti. Sanket means like a different gestures. And it involves employing sensual gestures and movements. Employing this art is one of the sinful ways of earning one's livelihood. Only the most condemned and greedy sense enjoyers are so attracted by the illusory beauty of a woman that they will spend their hard-earned money in exchange for a few moments of her association. If somehow or other a conditioned soul revives his inclination for Krishna's service, he will come to understand that it was because of giving up the service of the Lord that he has been swallowed by the witches of material enjoyment and impersonal liberation. So path was different for a human being, but we just get diverted. Something else becomes more important. And that is a pitiful situation. That's what Pingala is saying. (33) Yad sthirbihi nimit vansham vanshhe sathunam tvacha romaha nakhe pinadam ksharan navdvaram agaram etat vinmutra purnam mad upati kanya. This material body is like a house wherein I, the eternal spirit soul, am residing. Okay, and this is true for all of us. The soul lives in this body. My spine, ribs, and the bones of my arms and legs are like the beams and the pillars of the house. This body, which is full of stool and urine, is covered by skin, hair, and nails. Foul secretions emanate from the 9 doors of this body. Other than me, what woman would foolishly devote herself to this material body, thinking that she will find pleasure there? Pingala thought, alas, this is most strange. I have accepted this disgusting body, which is full of obnoxious substances, as the object of my conjugal pleasure. This house, in the form of my body, has 9 gates. The spinal cord is the main bamboo pillar upon which the body is supported. The bones of the rib cage, as well as the hands and legs, are considered to be secondary beams, giving support. Who is more unfortunate than me to consider such a body as a source of love and pleasure? The gross body of the conditioned soul is compared to a house. Just as a house consists of many wooden beams that provide support to the structure, the physical body is an assembly of bones, flesh, hair, nails, and other component parts. This body excretes abominable substances such as stool, urine, and perspiration. Therefore, it must be concluded that those who give up the service of Krishna just to accept the perishable and disgusting objects of this material world as desirable are certainly most unfortunate people. The similar kind of a thought we saw in Vivek Chudamani also by Adi Shankaracharya ji. Verse number 34. Videha nam purehi asmin aham akev mudhi yayam ichante asate asmad atam dal kamam achyutat. I rejected Shri Hari, who awards self-realization and our original spiritual form to enjoy sense gratification with many men. There is certainly no other woman in the city of Videh who is as foolish as myself. Pingala thought, I am so unchaste that I desired the association of many useless men rather than Lord Achyut, who gives himself to his dear devotees. The Supreme Lord is the personification of all transcendental mallows. There is nothing temporary or abominable in him. If one desires to serve the Lord, one should give up the aspiration to be the enjoyer of the objects of the senses. To serve the temporary objects of this material world is certainly foolishness. Verse number 35. Suhrid Preshtamo Nath Atma Chayam Shririnam Tam Vikriyatma Nevaryam Ramenen Yatha Rama. Lord Hari is the well-wisher, the Lord, and the super soul of all living entities. I will purchase him with the price of complete surrender and then enjoy with him, just like Lakshmi Devi. Pingala thought, what should I do then? If you ask me this, my answer is that I will dedicate my body to my most beloved Lord and enjoy his company. Self-realized souls who are devoted to Lord Hari's service are the actual friends and best masters of the embodied souls. If the conditioned souls engage in the service of the Lord like Lakshmi, then their lives will become successful and they will gain eternal happiness. Pingala realized that it is better to serve the Supreme Lord with one's body, mind, and speech under the subordination of Lakshmi Devi than to sell one's body to the temporary men of this world. This realization alone can free the conditioned soul from his propensity for material enjoyment. Verse number 36. कि यत प्रियम ते व्यभजन कामा ये काम दान रहा आदि अंतवंतो हो भार्य याद देवा व काल vidruta. Men give women some satisfaction of their senses, but they're all destined to die. Even the demigods in the heavenly planets. These men are temporary creations of the illusory energy of the Lord, who will be forcibly dragged away by time. Considering this, how much pleasure can men actually give to their women? Pingala thought, all men and even demigods are like devtas, who endeavor to fulfill their lusty desires are subject to birth and death. So how can they please their wives? I therefore conclude that no one in this world or in the next, other than the Supreme Lord, is worthy of my service. Tempting objects of this world, proud men who are busily absorbed in their temporary material identifications, and demigods who cannot award any true benefit to their subordinates are destroyed by time as a result of their karma. Because nothing is eternal in this material world. नूनम में भगवान प्रीतो विष्णु के नपि कर्मणः निर्वेदो यम दुराशाय यन में जातः सुखावः. Although I was determined to enjoy this material world, because this most auspicious detachment has awakened in my heart. Again, the key word is this detachment. I think that Lord Shri Hari must be pleased with me. Without even knowing it, I must have performed some activity that satisfied him. So in this way, Pingala praises her good fortune. So good fortune means that I have come to that decision where I feel detachment from this world. Some learned authorities have said that when Dattatreya happened to come to Pingala's house, she said to him, O foremost sage, what have I done to have the good fortune of seeing you? Today you have mercifully blessed my house. Please come in, have some food and water, and then rest a while. Indeed, Pingala even cleansed her courtyard when Dattatreya arrived there, out of his own sweet will. In this regard, one should contemplate the purport of the following verse from Srimad Bhagavatam. And that verse says, the Supreme Lord Hari, who is the Lord of Lords, must have been pleased with me because by his mercy I have developed this mood of detachment, which is the means for my deliverance from the ocean of material existence. So whenever we see something auspicious happening, it is the outcome of some good deeds. And we should take benefit of that moment. So just like she said that this Rishi has come, Dattatreya has come. I must have done something good, that I have a darshan of a Rishi in my house. Mevam sayur mand bhagyaya kalesha nirved hetva yen anubandham nirhatye purusha shamam richati. One who has developed detachment can give up the bondage of material existence, and one who undergoes great suffering gradually becomes, out of a sense of hopelessness, indifferent toward the material world. It was due to my great suffering that detachment awoke in my heart. So Pingala is saying that because we learned that earlier, that she waited all night for some customer to come. But then she was so saddened that detachment came. If I were actually unfortunate, how could I have undergone such merciful suffering? I can only conclude that I am actually fortunate because I have received the mercy of the Lord. Somehow or other, he must be pleased with me. Okay? Because sometimes we think that bad times, what do? But if we just turn around and use those moments also to go towards the right direction. So then it's a blessing in disguise. And this is what happened to Pingala. Instead of going into the depression that how come I don't have money, how come I didn't get what I wanted, she just turned around and became detached. Pingala thought, someone may ask me, why are you suffering despite having wealth? Is it because Lord Vishnu is not pleased with you? I would reply, please do not say that. If Lord Vishnu was not pleased with me, then I, who am an unfortunate prostitute, would not have developed a mood of indifference. Because of this indifference, I was able to give up all material aspirations and achieve satisfaction within my heart. So this is the real possession. This is the real gain when we feel detached from this material world. 39. Tenopam kritam adaya shirsa gramya sangtaha tyaktvaha durashaha sharnam vrajami tam adhishwaram. Therefore, with all respect, I accept this favor of Shri Hari upon my head. I will now surrender myself unto the lotus feet of the Lord of the universe, Shri Hari, giving up all material desires. Pingala thought, therefore I gladly become this favor of Lord Vishnu, which has resulted in my mood of detachment. Although I was fully attached to worldly enjoyment, I now take shelter at the lotus feet of the Lord of the universe, Shri Hari. Santushtaha shraddhyate etat yatha labhen jivati vihi shamye amanevaham atmana ramanenuve. I have firm faith in the favor of Shri Hari, and I am satisfied to accept whatever he provides for my maintenance. I will only enjoy the association of Shri Hari, who is the actual source of all love and happiness. Pingala thought, if someone were to ask, what will you do after surrendering to Shri Hari? The answer is that I will enjoy life with whatever I receive by his mercy. See, that is a santosh, contentment. I will only enjoy the association of Shri Hari, who alone is capable of giving me real pleasure. One never commits any sin or offense if he utilizes all material objects in the service of Lord Krishna and accepts whatever comes of its own accord for his maintenance. Desire for material enjoyment arises as soon as there is an absence of the propensity to render loving service to the Supreme Lord. This is the root cause of all material miseries. That means that material opulence becomes more important than the love for God. While utilizing this natural propensity for serving the Supreme Lord, one is able to see everything within the material world as meant for the Lord's enjoyment, rather than his own enjoyment. Thus, one sees the material world as an opportunity for engaging in the devotional service of the Lord. In Krishna consciousness, one's conditioned life is dissolved, and one becomes qualified to establish true friendship with other devotees in the course of rendering loving service to the Supreme Lord. So this kind of a devotee sees God in everybody. And whatever this devotee has is to serve God. Everything for the happiness of God. And that is the real love is when we want to see the happiness in our lover. Number 41. Sansar kupe patitam vishrehe mushitekshanam grastam kal hinatmanam ko neas stitam adhimbra. The intelligence of these conditioned souls is taken away by his activities of sense gratification. Thus he falls into the dark well of material existence, where he is seized by the deadly serpent of time. Who else but the Supreme Personality of Godhead could save the poor living entity from such a hopeless condition? One may argue, why did Pingala surrender to Vishnu instead of one of the demigods like Brahma? The answer is that no one but Lord Vishnu is capable of delivering the living entities who are drowning in the dark well of material existence and are thus blinded by their spirit of material enjoyment and devoured by the poisonous snake of time. The conditioned souls are bitten by the snake of time because they consider themselves to be enjoyers of this temporary material world, which is experienced by the senses as sound, touch, form, taste, and smell. This spirit of enjoying separate from the Lord is the reason for their falling into the dark well of material existence. Still, the all-merciful Supreme Lord has made many arrangements to deliver the fallen conditioned souls from the dark well of material enjoyment by engaging them in his devotional service. Verse number 42. Atma eva hi atmanaho gopta nirvidyet yat akhilat apramat idam pashet grastam kalhina jagat. Only when one can see how this material world is being swallowed by the serpent of time does he become sober and thus come to his senses. Thus he refrains from all types of material enjoyment and becomes qualified to act for his own protection. One may ask, by what means can one be delivered from the dark well of material existence? That means, how can we save ourselves from this? The answer is that when one realizes that the entire material creation is being swallowed by the serpent of time, then he can become indifferent to all kinds of material enjoyments. Okay? Serpent of time means everything will end. The things we are running after, they are all temporary. Being endowed with this understanding, one becomes his own protector. Pingala replies, recently this was my personal experience and thus I became freed from the clutches of material existence without separate endeavor. Now I will worship Lord Vishnu with love and devotion. This is the sum and substance of this verse. When a conditioned soul becomes self-realized and his natural propensity for the Lord's service is awakened, he receives the spiritual strength to protect himself from falling back down into the material existence. As a result, he is no longer anxious to enjoy this material world, nor does he become intoxicated by thoughts of material enjoyment. It is only in forgetfulness of the Supreme Lord that a living entity indulges in sense gratification under the influence of the time factor. Such a materialistic life is the result of one's aversion to the Supreme Lord. One can be influenced by the material time factor, sense objects, sense pleasure, only as long as one is ignorant of his eternal constitutional position. The bodily conception of life separates the living entities from the cultivation of Krishna consciousness and makes them falsely think of themselves as the enjoyers of material nature. So now, the last couple of verses in this chapter that Brahman is saying, because this up to this point it was Pingala was talking. So now Brahman uvacha. Evam vyavasit matir durasham kant tarshajam chitvoho pashmam asthai shyam upnevishah. The Avadhut Brahman said to that king, if you remember that. Thus her mind completely made up, Pingala cut off all her sinful desires to enjoy sex pleasure with so-called lovers, and so she became situated on the platform of perfect peace. Thereafter she sat down on her bed. In the last verse of this chapter, Asha hi paramam dukham nirashyam paramam sukham yatha Sanchidye kantasha sukham sushvap pingala. Material desires are undoubtedly the causes of terrible misery, and freedom from such desire is the cause of the greatest happiness. Okay, so that's where the message for us. We think we can have the sukh, the pleasure in the material desires fulfillment. The real sukh is detachment from them. While thinking in this way, Pingala renounced all desires to enjoy the affection of materialistic men so that she was able to peacefully go to sleep. Sense enjoyers are always disturbed in this world of so-called enjoyment, hiding somewhere nearby the path of renunciation, the threefold material miseries inspire careless transcendentalists to become enjoyers of perishable material objects whenever they get the slightest opportunity. The sinful desire for attaining fame, even while tied up by the ropes of desires for material enjoyment, sometimes induces the conditioned souls to become servants of Ravan, Kans, Jarasan, Agh, Bak, or Putna. If the conditioned souls turn off the temporary lamp of material desires and become attached to the lotus feet of the inhabitants of Vraj, then all auspiciousness will be within their grasp. Pseudo renunciation makes a living entity very proud. On the other hand, proper renunciation places living entities on the platform of pure goodness or transcendence. So, not a false renunciation, the real renunciation. Until the lamp of material desire is turned off, a devotee's desire for the service of the lotus feet of Shri Radha cannot materialize. In this regard, one should contemplate the meaning of this verse. Oh, ravishingly beautiful Shri Radhe. So this is like from a different scripture. This is not part of Bhagavad Purana. Okay. I am passing my days and nights in torment with a singular hope that I may obtain the ocean of immortal nectar. So kindly shower your grace upon me, deprived of your mercy, of what use are my life. Residence in Vraj, or even worshipful in Krishna, the enemy of Bakasur. So it's like the same message written in these some other secondary scriptures. Okay. So thus ends the translation of the second chapter of Uddhava Gita, entitled The Story of Pingala. मैं जल्दी से कॉल कर रहा हूँ. हाँ जी. So let's stop it here, and then we'll start, because those examples are not done yet. So this was just a Pingala's example today, the prostitute. So what he learned from Pingala, that Brahman did, the Avadhut did. Okay, but then we read what Pingala said also, her words too. Okay, so let's stop it here. We'll look at other examples in chapter 3 next week. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadai Purnameva Visheshyate. Om Shanti 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 Om. Thank you very much.